Thank you so much for being here. This is when I get to spend the next 20 minutes teaching you one little piece of what we do at Juno House. You've already heard what we do, and you've seen the amazing young women that walk out of Juno House. I want you all to leave today with a little bit more understanding of your child's brain, or someone in your world's brain as a child, as a young adult. What's happening in that brain and the absolute amazing influence that you have on that brain. And so today I'm going to take you to Nepal with me. My husband Bruce and I were in Nepal this spring, and for those of you who know that, you know it wasn't a trip of a lifetime. We were there when the earthquake hit. And I'm going to take you to Nepal because I want to connect for you what happened in Nepal in my brain is what is accidentally happening in a lot of girls' brains, like those three young women you just saw stand up here, that their amygdala, which is our fight-flight center, accidentally gets set in error, and they live their life as if there was an earthquake happening underneath them all the time. It really reinforced for me how quickly my amygdala kicked in, how incredibly important it is, what an incredible brain that we have inside of us. But how, when it goes in error, how incredibly exhausting it is. And what you've heard about, the result of anxiety, obsessive compulsive behaviors, eating disorders, and self-harm behaviors. This is where we were on April 25th when the earthquake hit. We were 3 stories up in this building as the walls began to shake and the ground began to move underneath us. Our amygdalas worked. So the amygdala is the part of the brain that is the fight-flight center. It's our fast brain. It immediately took us down 3 flights of stairs without thinking about it. We needed it to work. What happens in an amygdala flood is you get flooded with adrenaline and cortisol through your body. It's a surge of epinephrine. It's like throwing gas on a fire. It's instant, you don't think about it. We were flying down these stairs. It's fast, it doesn't stop to think about what are we doing. For the next 7 days, we were in Nepal trying to get out of Nepal. And so for the next 7 days, we experienced 8 to 10 aftershocks every single day. So all day long as we were hiking on bridges like this, the rocks would come flying over the edge at us, the ground would slip out from underneath us. At night, we would sleep fully dressed if there was a room to sleep in, that the building was still standing. And 5 to 10 times that night, the room began moving, the bed began moving, you got up, our amygdalas kicked into action instantly, and we were flying out of buildings. We had adrenaline, cortisol flooding through our system constantly. On day 2, in Namche Bazaar, there wasn't a building left that anyone could sleep in. And so this is us and 4,000 people sleeping outdoors. It is exhausting to have your amygdala go off that many times a day and to live with that kind of adrenaline and cortisol. You can't relax, you can't let down. So 7 days later, we got out. We got a flight to Seoul, Korea, and here we were after an exhausting flight, exhausting 7 days, feeling like, thank God, it's over. We're safe, we're okay. But it wasn't over. A month later, after taking very good care of ourselves, getting ourselves settled, both of us were in our house when a thunderstorm hit one day, and we hadn't seen it coming. And as the crack of thunder hit, both Bruce and I ran from the 2 parts of the house that we were in, joining in the kitchen, and we were having an amygdala flood. The noise, the sound, activated our brains as if we were in the middle of the earthquake again. Our pupils are dilated, we're sweating, very shallow breathing, our hearts are racing. It is a physiological occurrence that takes place. We had some work to do to help our amygdalas settle down and not be experiencing this as frightening. Here's the piece that's crucial for today. When your amygdala gets set in error, it flies off in the anxiety, eating disorders, obsessive compulsive behaviors, self-harm, perfectionist behaviors, panic attacks. It feels exactly like you're in the middle of an earthquake. This is an amygdala flood. This girl sitting looking at her plate of food. This is an amygdala flood. An obsessive compulsive girl knowing she has to do it over and over and over and over in exactly the same way or something bad is going to happen. This is an amygdala flood. The girl who stays up till 3 o'clock in the morning and cannot go to bed because she believes she has to get this done and it has to be perfect, and there is no perfect. And if you look at her, her pupils are dilated, her heart is racing, she has adrenaline and cortisol ripping through her body the same as I did. So how do these amygdalas get set in error when they're not in earthquakes? How does this happen? So in order to understand that, I want to explain a little bit about the brain and how we know it works. So your logical brain is your left brain. It's responsible for all things L, is what we say at Juno House. Language, logic, it likes linear thinking, it likes lining things up, it likes order, it loves repetition. This is a really important part of your brain. We use it a lot all day long. The other hemisphere, our right hemisphere, the prefrontal cortex of our right hemisphere, is what we think of as our slow-down brain. It is where we have all our capability of extinguishing fear patterns, of regulating our body. Anything that we notice in our body comes up through our right hemisphere. It's all of our emotions. It's all of our ability to self-soothe and to settle. It's all of our story of who we are, our narrative. It's all of our intuition, which is again a gut and brain phenomenon. It's all of our imagination, our curiosity, and every body sensation we have comes up through that slow down brain. The right hemisphere is known as the emotional regulator. Learning and expressing emotions and practicing that right hemisphere stuff is essential. And those of you who've been here before knew that I would get to this point, because that's what it's all about. And it's at the core of all the work that we do. So who are the girls that we end up working with at Juno House? These girls are high achieving, they are ambitious, they are going to go far in this world. They have a maladaptive perfectionism, which is an intense need to avoid failure and appear perfect. They're pleasant. They learn to be what others expect. I think Hillary actually said that in her talk. They don't need anything or anyone. They learn to be nice. They look really good on the outside. They look exceptional on the outside. They've learned to pretend to be what others want. They spend all their energy trying to figure out, what do you want from me? And they have very limited self-soothing, self-regulatory abilities because they don't spend enough time in that emotional brain. They live soothing themselves in error with their left brain. So if we don't practice being in the right brain, the left brain's going to take over. And the left brain is the repetitive, non-emotional brain. So we think about anxiety, and anxiety, as Peter said, anxiety-based issues. The function of anxiety is simply to put a lid on and to say, that feeling is unacceptable. I'm going to inhibit it. And what ends up happening in these girls is that all feelings become unacceptable. The bottom line is, if we're not using the right hemisphere of our brain, we are going to have body regulation problems. It just is a given. Which leads to all the things that we see at Juno House, and that these girls don't know how to manage because they don't have that part of their brain. They don't have the pattern in their brain to be able to use that part. So if I go back to Nepal for a minute, as we were there for those 7 days, all uncontrolled stimulus was seen as dangerous. Any movement under our feet, any sound, any noise flared off the amygdala. This is exactly what's happening in these girls' bodies. It's not a thought process. It's happening automatically. It's flooding their system with adrenaline and cortisol. They do not have access to that slow brain when this brain, the amygdala, takes over. All uncontrolled stimulus is seen as dangerous. It activates the fight-flight system. The other part of our amygdala is that it has another function, which is freeze, which is the worst of all. If we don't run when the earthquake hits and I freeze, I'm in really big danger. And this is exactly the same thing with these girls. It can activate, I need to run from this food because it's dangerous. I need to fight you, my parent sitting across from me trying to make me eat it because it's dangerous. Or I freeze. And as I freeze, I begin to die. Because freezing is feeling nothing. Freezing is not healthy. None of these are healthy. This is what a fight-flight system looks like that's been activated in error. The exhausted look that you saw on my face after 7 days in the earthquake, Can you imagine the exhaustion that is in this body with having the fight-flight system activated repetitively and no sense of being able to soothe and settle themselves? One of you here, I don't know where you are, sent me this slide. And I thank you for that. I love this slide. Parenting, when messing up your own life, just isn't enough. And I know that for some of you, it feels that way. And I know that I'm always going back to you, the parents. And it really is. The reason I go back to you, the parents, is because you are important. You are the template for every relationship in your child's life. That's a heavy-duty responsibility. What you express, what you teach, how you model, what you show is setting the template in their brain for how they're going to enter into every relationship. So those of you who've been here before have heard me say this. All feelings matter. But they matter, and we have to experience them. We have to live them. And we can't just live in joy or in happiness. We have to live in all of them. Temper tantrums are essential. We no longer say stick them in the bedroom till they can calm down. We say bring it on, make it bigger. Practice anger, practice rage, practice fear. And you need to tolerate it. Children are meant to be egotistical and selfish. And what that really means, selfish means I'm learning how to feel my feelings. I'm learning how to know that it's all about me, and my feelings are part of me, and expressing them is part of me. And remembering as parents that they're not here put on this earth to take care of us. We're here to take care of them. So if I go back to amygdala set in error, how can this happen in families where you love your children and you want the best for them? Well, life can just happen. Here's some examples. If there's a life-threatening illness or a chronic illness in your family, you may have a child who decides very quietly and unconsciously, there's already enough anxiety in this family, enough stress, enough worry. I'm just going to be a really good girl. I'm not going to need anything. Or maybe there's a sibling who has got some issues going on or is into adolescence and making some big noise and causing all kinds of stress to mom and dad. And you may have another child who says, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to need anything. I'm not going to be angry. I'm not going to be scared. I won't need anything because they already have enough on their plate. Or accidentally, you come home from work and you don't like big emotion and you don't like big noise and you've had a really stressful day. And you begin to give the message on a repeated basis, I can't handle it. I need that you do this for me. I need you to settle me down. I've had a very difficult day. Please just do this for me. And go back to, kids aren't here to take care of us. We're here to take care of them. Or accidentally setting up the pattern that says, when daddy gets home, mommy gets home, they've had a very stressful day, they're very important what they do, it's very hard work. We all need to be really quiet and good when they walk through the doors. Once again, we have them taking care of us in error and not trusting that emotional brain that they need to be paying attention to. These are the places that I want to encourage you as parents before you go through the door. Stop, look at your own stress, take off your coat. Think about taking off your coat of whatever went on in that day, however stressful it was, however incredibly important you are, whatever great deal you had that day, none of that matters the minute you walk through the door. That it really is about egotistically, selfishly helping lock eyes with your child and look at their emotional needs in that moment. So that's how amygdalas get set in error. They practice being good. They practice being logical. They practice being whatever you want them to be because you accidentally have set up that expectation. So how can you reset it? How do you reset it when you recognize that it happens? So in terms of the brain, what we think about at Juno House is that what we know we have to do is we have to calm down the thalamus, another part of our brain. And how do we calm a thalamus? We calm it by not accidentally flipping into our logical brain. Remember the adrenaline and cortisol. I know all of you, as I told about Nepal, I saw big eyes. You can all imagine the extreme fear that that brought on. It is exactly the same fear. If someone had said to me, don't worry, we'll get out of here, this is going to be just fine, I'd have said, excuse me. I was not in a place where somebody could logic it with me, neither are they. You must accept and tolerate big fear. If you have big emotion that you haven't dealt with, your child's going to know that, and they're going to take care of you. They're going to not bring that to you, and that will be to the detriment of themselves. You can't be afraid of big emotions. The other thing that we know about the brain is that if we actually connect with the fear, so we a lot of times as parents and adults say to a child, don't feel that way, don't be scared. What we actually need to do is the opposite, is connect with the fear. I see you are scared. I see you are terrified. What we know now happens in the brain when we actually name it. We say name it to tame it, but what really is happening is that by naming it, we're actually shutting off some of that adrenaline that's flooding their brain at that moment. Giving it a name. You look scared. Of course you're scared. Or I don't understand why you're scared, but I see you are. That will begin to shut off the adrenaline and begin to allow you to bring on that slow brain that we're talking about. The other thing about the brain, so you can reset or set up in the first place if you're raising little children, is to know that the brain, that slow brain that we want to access and practice, is accessed through face. So look at your child. It's through your eyes. Our eyes are an amazingly powerful tool, we now know from the brain point of view. Looking someone into the eyes will calm the thalamus. So being able to see your child in that fearful, fearful state, and those of you who have dealt with any girls with these issues, you know how fearful it is to sit at that table when they are raging in fear at the food that's set in front of them, or at some expectation of them. But if you can look at them and see it and hold their eye contact, you are going to physiologically begin helping them access that part of their brain. Your touch. Remember that I said the right emotional slow brain? All of our body sensations come up through that brain. Touch is soothing. Touch calms the thalamus. So is your voice. Learn how to use your voice in a different way. It's very hard when someone is yelling and screaming at you in terror to be calm yourself. But if you can take your voice down a notch and be in that calm place, it isn't really a matter of what you say. So don't get hung up on, am I saying the right thing? But it's more that you're looking at them, you're engaging with them, and your voice is saying, I see you, I hear you, I understand right now this is terrifying. Other things that activate that emotional slow brain that we're trying to get to activate is walking. Walking, it's why walking will calm us all down, because it actually shuts off. If we're in an amygdala flood, it can shut it off. The best thing we did in Nepal was that we were having to hike for 4 days. If we'd been having to sit the entire time, it would have been much more difficult, much more adrenaline. The physical act of walking, we now know, is a calming, soothing, it activates the emotional brain. Talking, stroke their body, touch them. I'm here for you. So if you want words, these are the words. I'm here for you. I see your fear. It's okay. I'm here for you. I see you. I'm not going anywhere. Don't leave them alone. In that state of adrenaline flood, the worst thing in the world is to be left alone, because you are in a fight, flight, freeze scenario, and you need people around you. You need them to see you. Even if you can't make it better, you need to connect with them. The other thing that you can do that's a really simple tool is what we know about our breath, is that when we exhale, we're activating the part of our nervous system, the parasympathetic system, that is actually going to bring on our slow brain. So if we're having an amygdala flood and you're sitting with your child, don't say a word, but simply notice your breath. And breathe in on the count of 3 or 4, whatever you breathe in. Make sure your exhale is longer, and make sure it's noisy. Breathe in. Breathe out. What's going on in the brain, if you're able to have a little PET scan that you were able to look at you and your child's brain, is that you have now just helped shut off that adrenaline and flip her into that emotional brain. Simply by the exhale, her brain is recognizing that exhale and it's going to settle itself down. The other thing about amygdala charges that's really important to know is that they block the hippocampus. I love doing this because I get to use all these words that we use all the time. But the hippocampus makes memory. That's its purpose in our brain. When we were 3 stories up in that building and the earthquake hit, we ran down these 3 flights of stairs, got out to the bottom, got to a safe place. Absolutely none of us have any memory of who went first, how fast we ran, what order we were in. My husband Bruce apologized to all of us afterwards and said, if I stepped on anybody or pushed you out of the way, please forgive me, but I have no memory of that whatsoever. None of us have any memory of that moment when we had the amygdala flood. So when you're sitting there, know that this is not memory that's going to anchor in this child's brain. You will remember it because she's being aggressive and angry and outward to you. She is not going to remember that. And be ready for the next one. You're resetting an amygdala. A month later, a thunderstorm terrified me, and my system was completely overwhelmed. You're going to have to reset it and use these tools over and over again. If you haven't seen this movie, Inside Out, this is my favorite movie of the year. And I was hoping that they would have it released so that I could sell it here today because it is a fabulous movie. So it's all about a little 12-year-old girl's brain. It's told from the emotions that run our brain inside of her brain. It stars joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust. Joy thinks she can run this little girl's life, but the real story is that you've got to be able to have starring roles for all of those emotions. You've got to be able to feel the sadness. You've got to be able to feel the anger. You've got to be able to feel the fear and to feel the disgust and to express all of that. Really important. Whoever guided this film was a genius. It is a beautiful, beautiful film. So the words again I want to leave you with today. As you think about calming that thalamus, I see you. It's okay. I will be here for you. We had to reset our amygdalas. It took a while. And it took a really conscious, repeated effort after we got back from Nepal to not have sounds and noises and sensations activate our amygdalas. This takes repeated, conscious effort, but you can do it. It's what we do. It's hard work, and that's why we're there at Juno House. But you're a really important part of helping reset these brains. So all of this is going to be on the handouts that you can pick up on the way out. But I want you to really think about naming it. We know that physiologically naming it, not telling them not to feel something, but really honoring and recognizing it, is going to shut off the adrenaline. You shut off the adrenaline, you begin to have access to their prefrontal cortex, the slow brain. Focus on your exhale. Don't be logical. This doesn't make any sense, and you're going to continue to activate the amygdala if you try and be logical. Don't be afraid of big emotion. Don't be afraid of any present, past, future big emotion. Connect with their real fear. I really want you to just hold on to the fact that physiologically, this is a flood that's happening in front of you. And you have an ability to be able to help bring that brain back online. Remember your face, your gaze, your eyes, your touch, your voice, movement. And remember, you don't have to have all the words. You have to have a voice that says, I see you, I hear you, I'm here for you. And really let those 5 big emotions be starring roles in your family. It's really fun when you do that. And it's really helping them practice those and set up the brain in the first place that's going to help them no matter where they are and no matter what they experience. Thank you.